Good morning and welcome in, everyone. Before we get into this morning's update, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in on this Sunday. It is Sunday, May 4th, 2025 at 8:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm XRP Future Millionaire and I reside in the great state of Michigan. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Try to keep your emotions within check. Each and every day we go into crypto, we try to keep our heads on the right way. We try to look at a fresh perspective, but also go into the past to try to predict somewhat of the future. And we'll take a closer look at the charts as we've had somewhat of a breakdown in a sense, but we've still maintained in certain levels. Like Bitcoin's only down 325 points this morning at 95,592. XRP's at about $2.19. So it's not much difference from where we started this weekend, but we're definitely going to go into a nice overhaul of the charts. We'll take a look at, in rhythm here, the most important perspective to look at here, and it's going to remain this chart. We'll keep it in the 4-hourly right now, but just for transparency so you can see it, we have this big descending pattern in the daily. If we can see this set up in the daily at least, it's a lot easier to see. We've got a couple of downtrending resistance lines here. We've got the first area, which is right around, and if we make this out just a little bit, because we want to stay in real time. So the most important thing is keeping this in real time. We'll look at it like something like right here. So 223, we've got to get past this, but as you can see in the daily, it still looks like we're reversing to the downside here a little bit. We've got these little crosses. We've had bearish crosses through the 50 and the 100-day. Now we're trying to hold support. Otherwise, we're going to fall back down here to the 20-day or the 200-day. We're going to find ourselves down there in a pretty swift motion. If we come down any farther, as we can see in the 4-hourly, we're looking like a little bit of a reversal here starting to take place. Had a little bit of upward pressure, got rejected on the 20 and the 50, and now it's starting to pull down. If we lose the 200-day, which is approximately, if we lose that area right at about 218, I mean, it could lead to some downward volatility. The first area would be down here at $2.05 if we were to fall through here. So, like, if we come through here, that $2.05 is going to be a very big moment that we're going to have to deal with. Now, in the short term, that's what I'd be looking at, is if this doesn't break through and we end up falling down, that's that 217, 218 line, which is where this could start to get very tricky because that's where the death cross would happen as well. So we could have a death cross here looming, and if we lose the 200-day right now, that would be your first sign that we might have a problem here. So 217, 218, that breaks. All of a sudden, this death cross starts to go into full motion. And now all of a sudden we might have a little bit of a problem here, you know. So that could be something that's setting up as we speak. So we could start to the downside to start the week. So we need to see a clear and concise break over this 223, 224 area so we can start pushing to the top of this descending triangle. We've got two areas, short order, large order, and it's very important both ways because the way this pattern's set up, that's how it is. So we've got resistance over the top, resistance underneath, uptrending support that can try to keep us from falling all the way down to the FVG at $1.50. So that's everything we've got to take into account on this short little space here. So that's how we're looking at this right now. Until this either breaks out of this range or starts pulling back down to 205, we're pretty much stuck. And like if you look at this from the perspective of, okay, well, if we're going from supply to demand to distribution, where the hell are we at? Well, that's where it leaves a lot to be desired, because now that we're in this 5 wave, we don't know how long it's going to correct. We don't know if it's going to take several years. We don't know if it's going to happen quicker because of the current environment. We don't know. So right now, this is our demand zone, distribution, and supply. And distribution here, a lot of times we sent us into demand, but there was not enough demand, so it sent us back to redistribute, whether buyers or sellers, which you can go back in the past pattern and you can see this pretty nicely. When we first came out of the first supply zone, which was here, we came into here, ended up in demand. We got some distribution to the upside, but then in demand we failed. Came all the way back down to supply. Distribution this time, we didn't have enough to even get to the demand zone. So now we've kind of been lagging out here for a few years. And the wave 4 WXY correction leads into a full 5 wave, it looks like. Now, obviously, everybody's going to have their own opinion, but that's what I'm seeing. So now we've collected out of the distribution, but is it enough to get into demand and ultimately have enough people in the demand zone to push us into a parabolic spike into discovery? Because once you break demand and you're on the top side, you're going to go into discovery, and we're going to end up filling out that target near $5.49. It's just, I don't know when. I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know if it's going to have the same semblance as we did in the past, because if we do, it could take us all the way out into this time frame way down here. So it really all depends. It just really all depends how we decide to play out. If this played out something like this is like August of 27. If we wanted to play out like the 3 years, like the past patterns, it would bring you something like this. You know, and I mean, you're talking about going firmly into 28. So, I mean, you could see a scenario like that to get us out. I would like to think that our distribution box could hold us and we'd look something like that in worst case. But I could totally see us coming down. And either way, so that's what I'm really looking at there. But I do think it's important to maintain on this particular pattern as well. Because this is the longer scope here. Like, there's no doubt about it, this is the longer scope. So that's the area of concern for me. Do we come down in the shorter time frame? Or are we going to have some kind of steam? So if we look at this in the 2 hour objectively, let's narrow this in a little bit so we can kind of focus on this range. So we know the pattern. So now we've got bearish cross from the 20 through the 50, or through the 50 and the 100. Now we're kind of getting rejected where we're having these bearish cross moments here. Now if that 50 comes through the 100, that's the first sign of a short-term correction back downward. Now, we came down a couple of times on the 200 day, haven't given it away yet, but with the pedestrian bounce back, that could lead to a little bit of an issue going forward. So that's a little pedestrian there. So if we fall down below that 200 day, which let's put this up here just so we can see, that's at $2.18 approximately. Once this breaks, that's going to end up having this death cross in the 2 hourly, and then you're going to end up having to come down to the 4 hour time frame. And it's not that much farther. Like, that's the thing. We're so tight right now. Yeah, see, that's right at 218. This could be a problem. The 4 hourly is already telling us we've got a problem. Now, whether or not we get some real bounce back here or not, that's going to be the question. Right now, though, this little bearish cross is telling us we've got an issue here in the short term. So we're going to have to rectify that in a very quick fashion. Then if we look at this in the daily, we're being supported on the 20 day. But as we can see, these are bearish crosses as well. 50 crossing the 100. Now we're trying to support the 20 day. Still looks kind of reversal-ish. If we break down, I'm telling you, if we break this down, we're going to end up down here and ultimately fighting back with that 200 day, which is all the way down at $1.99 now. So that is changing for sure. So we've got to pay some pretty close attention to this range. We've got to pay some attention to this range, bottom line. So if we're watching this, that's what I'm looking at this Sunday morning. And then Bitcoin is at 95,547, down about 369 points, or bucks. 95,547. Again, this looks bearish to start today. Looks like we're going to come back down towards the 93,000 area. If that breaks, because it looks like we need to retest that golden cross here in the daily, that's going to bring it. I could see us coming all the way back down to 93 or 91.8, 92,000 to try to make sure that this is all good and that we have the momentum here. So we'll see. Basically came up and filled that entire technical target. It was a little shy, not much, a few $100. So I'm not going to kill it for that. So we'll see how this transpires as the days go on. Definitely looks like we're reversing in some kind of little head formation. Probably gonna bounce down to at least 93,000. I think it's gonna likely bounce all the way down here at least. And then it might open itself up for a further correction. We'll see though, but risk assets right now, it's not the most desirable game in town. And risk assets, when you have just the numbers the way they are, with inflation the way it is in this country, with the credit crunch we have, with the fact that a lot of Americans don't have a lot of expendable cash. In fact, most Americans have a credit crunch right now where they have no room even on their credit cards. So when you talk about risk assets, it becomes very dangerous, because if there's not a lot of expendable cash, the last place that usually finds liquidity would be a risk asset. Now, no risk, no reward, and high risk or high possibility of reward for the risk, yes, it's greater, and some people like to take that risk. But in a risk on, risk off environment where it's bouncing from risk on to risk off to risk on, gold and silver are risk on and risk off assets. So that's an area we'll start to see a more defined push there. We have to have the pullback as we've been having. And that should have led to a little bit of semblance here in crypto, but it's doing the opposite. It's actually doing the opposite. Even with gold and silver correcting here at the end of the week, it's still, it didn't bring a lot of momentum here. Gold's still at 3,240. Silver's at about 31.99, so it dropped under 32 bucks. So but our thinkings are correct in that area too. I mean, we thought we could have a correction. We put the line down below. And we've talked about, if this doesn't hold, how we would have to reset down here. Maybe we do come back to 28. Maybe we come farther. But we've been in a very defined setup here for some time. And the underneath support is that uptrend. So it's possible. It is absolutely possible. And with the US dollar closed at about 100, back on pairing a little bit, but it still looks like trash. All that there was came up to our uptrend. That was one of the targets. If it follows through here, then the next one's going to be 95. And once it breaks that, it could be chaotic. So, with that being said, you know, I think we touched base pretty good here on this Sunday morning. I've got some stuff to do. I've got to go to a viewing for an aunt that passed away. And then the funeral's tomorrow. But with my son's school schedule, I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to go to the rest, because it's in the morning when my son's got his school stuff. But today I'm going to go to the viewing. It starts at about 2, so I'll go there for a couple hours and show my respects and things like that. And then I'm going to attempt to do the live tonight. I haven't done one this weekend yet. I mean, I did one Friday, not one yesterday, because it's been a little busy. But I'm going to try to do one tonight. I would like to cover the market as we get back into a less than thinly traded weekend, but more into the real semblance of what's going on in the market. I would like to touch base on just any kind of news or what the market looks like going into the 8 p.m. close tonight. See how gold and silver come back online, how the DXY responds, and just see how the futures markets are looking. Should be interesting. Another slow weekend here in crypto. Another either average or a little bit down on the weekend once again. It's no surprise, as we've had 19 weekends so far this new year in 25. They've all been pretty piss poor. Some of them stayed pretty, you know, on footing, but for the most part, we've had either stay or down, and that's the same thing. We started in the 220 plus range to start the weekend for XRP, and now we're at 218.9. But I don't think we're surprised here. I think we understand what's going on here is the bottom line. I think we understand what's going on here. I don't think we're getting fooled by the market, so to say. I just think we've got to decide now if our Elliot waves are going to do the same thing. And yeah, in 2021, I had some people tell me, Tom, that 2021 was failed. I completely understand and agree with that. So I put it into a WXY after that fifth wave didn't come up greater than the third. So that's a failed Elliot. And then you go into a corrective. And now I think we're pushing into the fourth corrective wave right now. But we'll see. We'll absolutely see how this plays out. And then we have to see how the distribution, if we can stay within. And then if eventually we get some demand here to push us into parabolic zones. But it does look like we could teeter back down towards these areas. I feel like what's going to happen based on past cycles. And obviously the past doesn't predict the future, but it often rhymes in my opinion. So what I could see happening, we've done this. On average, these wave 4 correctives in the past, The wave 4 correctives in the past have taken us approximately, let's see, 3.5 plus years, about 3.5 years when we were in wave 4 corrective. So now if we do the same thing, and let's just say we do drag out for some time, 2-3 years, you would start to get this, and then you start chopping. And that's exactly what it's been doing. So could we do this and then swing around? I think we could. I think it would make sense to do something like that. Now, is it going to be October of 27? Would it be 2028? Who knows? Could it be a little bit earlier and we springboard somewhere, you know, coming down like this, and then we springboard out? We absolutely could do something like that as well. But until we do, we've got to pay attention to the actual formations. We've got to only go with our history that we have telling us how long wave 4s usually last for XRP. And the first 2 prior events, it took, you know, 3.5 years. So that's what we're looking for. XRP Future Millionaire. Make sure you go to my homepage and or pinned comment to this very video. You will see Bitunix. They have the lowest spot in leverage trading fees. I encourage you to click on that link. You can swing trade, leverage trade. They've had XRP in the USA even when the lawsuit started. No KYC or VPN. They are an exchange to an exchange, so you're not sending or receiving from a bank account. If you appreciate my program, you can always send a PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. You can join my Telegram, which is on the bottom. That's free. If you're afraid that you're not going to get the content from YouTube, if you're not being alerted, even with the bell notification turned to all, which I heavily encourage, you can join the Telegram even if you don't want to talk, and I have a section. So it just shows the updates and lives being put in. When I do a live format, it'll be like my old format. I won't be showing the TV. It'll be more personable. So you'll be seeing me through the front of my computer or my tablet. But for the updates, I'm going to try to switch to a format more like this to keep it fresh. And then I'll do the shorts again starting today. Just been a lot of stuff going on this weekend. I thank the 35,800 subscribers. We put out 5.6K, so 5,600 plus videos. If you're new, I started this March 24th, 2021. Never missed a day, so I'm very, very happy, honored, and privileged, and proud of that stat. And then, other than that, I mean, that's basically what I got for you guys today. Take this day, make the most of it. Prove to the Lord that you embrace the day. Every day we get up, it's a gift. So let's take full advantage of it. Let's make ourselves better, wiser, and a little bit more positive. We want to be positive over negative. We are a community of positivity over negativity. We never play the victim because we are not one. We are the winners. So being winners, you have to have all the information from the charts. We'll go into the news later. And just an overall economical environment. You want to know politics, economics. You want to know the charts. You want to know the news because it keeps you in the game. So have a blessed one. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. And go amongst this day and profess your love to the people around.